Okay, so we got a few people still coming in, but I think we can probably get started. If you're joining late, I guess you won't hear me saying this, so it doesn't matter. First of all, I'm kind of really want to introduce everyone to Rob Allen. Rob Allen is our VP of Operations for EMEA. For what that means is Europe and Africa, and the UK now, I guess. Being as they're still there, but they somehow drifted away.
Technically still Europe, I think,
Yeah.
despite their best efforts.
Yeah, despite their best efforts, I'm sure they'd love to forklift the country somewhere else, but they can't. They're stuck right in the middle of Ireland and the rest of Europe. um, for those of you who don't know, we're excited. We've officially launched our European headquarters for our European customers. We're very focused on GDPR and making sure that we can help European customers achieve the same kind of level of zero trust success that everybody has in the US. To do that, well, I say we opened our European office. I think the office is a strong word. We have an office with nobody in and lots of people in their dining rooms right now.
As I demonstrate.
Yeah. So we have our European presence working from home, I guess it is, with an empty office. Probably the first thing is Rob's our VP of Operations. His job is to lead the Irish operations, to lead the European operations, and to help build out a team. We plan to hire over 50 people over the next 18 months in Europe. So Rob, maybe if you want to talk a little bit about your background.
My background is I spent nearly 19 years working for a medium-sized Irish MSP. Performed a variety of functions, everything from engineer to sales director, you name it. I like to think that it has given me a few insights as to how MSPs work, how MSPs think, the challenges they face, and likewise the challenges their clients face. I've been literally at the coalface cleaning up after crypto attacks. So I kind of know the stakes. I also know that the landscape is changing and changing rapidly. Where once upon a time, crypto attack, realistically, as long as you had a backup, you were pretty much okay, nothing really to worry about. The latest one I was involved with, the text file that was left behind by the attackers basically said that they had uploaded 1.3 terabytes of data prior to encrypting everything. So not only did you have the challenge of putting everything back together, you also had the worry, or the client also had the worry in the back of their mind about what data had got out. And obviously we're asking questions about GDPR and worried about possible fines and all that kind of stuff. So basically the landscape has changed. The challenges are getting bigger by the day, and I genuinely think what ThreatLocker do and how they do it is incredibly powerful. It just gives you complete control over what can run and what can't run in your network, and I think that's so important in this day and age.
I think from ThreatLocker's point of view, as we grow our team out, and those of you who are on the call who have been with ThreatLocker for a long time, we kind of went into the market as an enterprise play, and we pivoted quite sharply into the MSP industry. And I've got to learn all sorts of exciting things over the last few years while we've done that. And now we've gone from, I remember the day we signed up our first MSP to over 2,000 partners, growing incredibly rapidly and very successfully in the MSP industry. But when we were looking at trying to hire out a team in Ireland, it was very easy to go into the vendor space and say, oh, you've sold to MSPs before, you understand MSPs. But what I found was, did they really understand? They understand how to sell to them, but, and it's important to, of course, we hire from those pools as well. But I said, if we've got someone at the helm in Ireland, we need someone who's actually been in an MSP. So, I've known Rob for a long time, and I kind of thought there's no way in the world I'm getting this guy to leave his 18-year position in an MSP.
Well, 19.
Yeah, 19 years, 19-year position in MSP. But I think for me, it was very important. How do we get people on who really understand the pain? Not what vendors think the pain is, but who have actually been through it, understand it, and can cut through all the crap. So it's really great to have Rob on board and to help us direct ThreatLocker towards the MSP industry even more inside the European Union.
Nice.
Today we want to kind of go through a few things. The first is I want to talk about what's happening in the market, what's changed, what's new over the last quarter. And I probably want to start with these QuickBooks and Sage files that are being stolen. and I don't know if anyone's seen the news on this, but over the last few weeks, we've seen this huge uptick in theft of QuickBooks data files or if Sage data files or accounting data files in general. Essentially what these hackers are doing, and you don't even know it's happened. That's the terrifying thing about it. You don't know it's happened until, well, you may never know. You just know that money keeps disappearing from bank accounts and things like that. But what they essentially do is they use one of three methods. They send you a Word document, an Excel file saying, here's an invoice. You click on enable content. We've all seen it before. It goes off to the internet, it downloads a piece of malware. That malware is very, very custom written. We decoded it here. It's 15 lines of code. Literally all it does is look at your last open QuickBooks database or Sage database from the registry, takes that, copies it, uploads it to Google Cloud, and then goes away. Never see it again. Now, what's terrifying about this is we've seen it in three different forms. We've seen it in RunDLL, where a document we'll call RunDLL. We've seen it in executable format, and we've seen it in PowerShell format, where it'll just use PowerShell. So two of those aren't even actually running malware on your machine. They're just weaponizing PowerShell. They're just weaponizing RunDLL and using them against you. But what's really scary about it is you'll probably never know that data was stolen. You'll never have any clue it was stolen. It was taken out to the internet. It's going to be sold on the dark web. You're probably going to start seeing an uptick in spear phishing campaigns. And everyone always asks themselves, how did they know I had an invoice for $11,543 to send me an email to say change the bank details? But the attackers will use that data to then come back at you, launch very, very successful spear phishing campaigns against you, but not just you, your customers. And you might have the worst luck for the next 5 years when it comes to identity theft and spear phishing. And what you don't realize is it's not just bad luck. Somebody actually got your data and they're able to target you and your clients because of that. So that's one of the big things we see. We've obviously seen this increase in ransomware, but like Rob pointed out, just before he moved on to ThreatLocker, the MSP he was working with, which hopefully soon will be in a ThreatLocker client. So one of their clients had been hit by ransomware, and they left that note saying, guess what, we got your data as well. So the client might feel smug in that I managed to get a good backup. And yes, they didn't get my backup, but the amount of data they've got, and of course you can't pay these guys. You can't pay them, pay a criminal saying, I know you'll delete all the data if I pay you. The idea is really dumb.
The issue with these guys is they just didn't know. They, like they said, they took the data. They didn't know if the data was gone or not, so they literally have that doubt in the back of their mind constantly, whether or not information's got out, whether or not it's going to be posted online, whether or not there's going to be GDPR fines. So it's the lack of knowing that's really killing them.
Well, and the problem is as well, now that they've got that note and they don't know, I guess that under GDPR they have to disclose.
Absolutely.
The data's been taken, and that obviously causes customer confidence corrosion and confidence and things like that. But it's interesting you say that, though, because I've seen a few cases of ransomware with people using ThreatLocker in their monitor stage, and we're less than 10 over 2,000 partners, because most people don't stay monitoring too long, and you shouldn't stay monitoring too long. But I have definitely seen in some of those cases where we see the files being accessed by those applications and being uploaded, or at least communicated with the web, the same application. So there definitely is data extraction happening after the event.
Yeah.
Now, today we want to focus on how, as an MSP, you can really use Zero Trust. I mean, what it actually means. And I also want to show you some cool little hacking tricks on how you can use some of these tricks to sell to your clients. So there's two things I want to show you from a hacking point of view, one of which is rubber duckies. And for those of you who don't know what a rubber ducky is, there's various different formats of them. This is one, and the case is broken off this one. It's a USB device. This one's got the case off. Here's one with a case on. What it has inside it is it has an SD card inside it. So I don't know how well you can see that. There's an SD card built inside it, and you put it on that SD card and you put in keystrokes. So when you plug it into your computer, it types in keyboard commands to upload your files to the internet, to launch a malware attack or something like that. This is very, very, very commonly used for gaining access to networks to launch attacks later on. So I've seen it used in car dealerships. I've seen it used in dental offices. I've seen it used in hospitals, where you have a public facing computer where somebody can just come in and they can drop it in. And it might not even be the hacker that does it. They can hire people, go onto Craigslist and hire someone for $50, $500. If you plug this in to this car dealership, we're going to give you $500 if we get on their network. And, on Craigslist, that's not exactly hard to defined. The other thing, the other format that these come in is phone charging cables. They're called OMG cables, and they look exactly like Apple chargers. You cannot tell the difference. They're even a little bit more scary because this one here specifically, when you plug this in, it launches the attack. When you with the OMG cables, when you plug them in, they do nothing. They have a Wi-Fi antenna built into them, and you can actually connect and deliver the keystrokes later on. Now, what's important about these devices is they are keystrokes, so they're not going to be blocked by USB storage. They're not running malware. And the example I'm going to show you today is how you can literally type in a command to upload something to the internet, upload all your documents to the internet. And your EDR and your MDR and your antivirus isn't going to detect this because it's essentially just using PowerShell, a legitimate command, and nothing too bad. The other thing I want to talk to you about is I have a friend of mine in the UK. I think it's going on 6 months ago now, real cocky shit. And he said to me, "Oh, we have the best security. No one can get into our network. No one can get ransomware." And I'm equally as arrogant. So I just kind of made a bet with him that I could get onto his system. I could get not real malware, but I could gain access and get some kind of malware run on the computer, which at the time seemed like I was overreaching my ability. And I kind of regretted that as I backed off into a hole.
That doesn't sound like you, Danny.
Yeah, well, publicly it's not. I was like, oh, shit. Now I've got to go and waste time on this. But I kind of had an arrogance part about me that had to prove him wrong. So 24 hours later, I had his RMM password, and I had, more importantly, I had malware running on his machine, not real malware. It was just fake malware, and I got to not walk away with my tail between my legs at that time. But it definitely was an interesting experience, and I'm going to show you how I did that because I didn't do anything magic. It wasn't special. It was really a series of trickery that allowed me to get access to a third level text computer in an MSP, which really doesn't seem like it should be that easy. So I'm just recapping what we're going to do. We've got the rubber ducky. We're going to show you some zero trust. We're going to show you how easy it is to implement at a high level. It's not a full demo of ThreatLocker, so we're not going to bore you with sales. But if you do want to book a demo at the end, we'll put a calendar link in there. And we'll show you how we hack that MSP. And we're also here to answer any questions. So if you're an MSP, if you're an existing client, you want questions, you have things to say, shoot them into the chat, shoot them into the questions. We'll try and get through everything before the end of the day. Okay, so I think the first thing is, let's go into the rubber ducky. We'll get it exciting first of all. So I'm going to show you this here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen on my laptop here. So if I go, you get to see, if I can figure out how to, I'm going to jump into here. I'm going to share my screen if I can figure out how. During this time here, I'm going to put this in front of me so I'm not looking sideways at everybody. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this in, and can you see the screen okay? There, I'll be. I think that's up. So what you're going to see is when I put this in, it's essentially going to send a Control R command. Now it's worth noting ThreatLocker is installed on this machine. It is locked. It is not locked down, so it will allow it to run if we've done everything right. And sometimes hacking doesn't work as well as I want, but you'll see here my hands are up. And I can't type that fast either. It's literally typing out a PowerShell command and from command prompt. So it's launched PowerShell. Now in the background, what's happening is PowerShell's running and it's iterating through my documents folder. So I'm going to try and, I did have my Google Drive open here, and I'm going to refresh this page. And if I've done everything right, a whole bunch of files are going to appear. There you go. And essentially what it's doing is it's uploading everything in my documents folder, which is mostly garbage because it's not a real laptop. I just use this for demonstrations. And it's put it onto a Google Cloud here. And now I want to show you from a ThreatLocker perspective, we are in monitor only mode. So nothing's happening. Again, I wouldn't save my real password. This is just my demo account, just in case anyone wants to post that I'm a stupid ass for saving my password. And we can see here a couple of things in the audit that come up, and I'm going to filter by the action ring fence. So the idea of ring fencing is in this case, we didn't run any malware on the machine. We just weaponized and used PowerShell against us. And we did it through a keyboard. We did it through launching command prompt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly just show you what that looks like on the screen as I plug it in. I'm going to try and grab it before it ends. So I'm going to click pause. Ah, damn, I didn't pause it. Normally I can pause it, but I'll try one more time. What we've done is essentially we just called PowerShell.exe, and as we did that, sometimes it lets me pause. There you go. No, it's not going to let me pause. So what it essentially does is calls that command, it types it in, and it says iterate through the documents and upload to the internet. No malware involved, so no antivirus is going to block this. No application whitelisting is going to block this. It's allowed. So what we see here in the audit is this concept of ring fencing. What ring fencing does is it allows you to say, okay, I allow this application to run. I trust PowerShell. But PowerShell doesn't need access to everything on my computer. PowerShell doesn't need access to my documents folder. It doesn't need access to my network shares. It doesn't need access to go out to the internet, except maybe I use Office 365 scripting, so I have an exception there. But in general, it needs to do a lot, but it doesn't need access to any of my network shares or my documents folder. So by limiting what it can do, essentially we ring fence that application and we stop it being able to push data to the internet. Now, this sounds like, oh, wow, this is black magic, but it's not. And not only is it not black magic, I'm going to send a link here, hopefully if Liz is here, because she might have it to hand, in the chat, which gives you pre-canned scripts for Rubber Ducky. So you can have all these out of the box. They literally took about 10 minutes from, well, I wrote some of them, Liam wrote some of them, to write these scripts. And we've got various scripts. You literally copy them to a USB drive, to these drives. You can buy them for $50. We do have a new promotion starting again today. If you do sign up after today, so if you're already on, if you sign up for a trial and you install and lock down, I want to stress this, you've got to install and lock down 100 seats in your trial in the next 30 days. We will actually send you one of these free of charge. So if you're signing up today for a trial, you can request one of these, but you do have to install and lock down 100 seats to actually get one. Liz, if you don't mind posting in that box drive script where some of these samples are in there, that would be great as well. Hopefully that'll come into the chat. It's not there yet, but it should be there by the end of the event. If not, I'm going to go and look for it. So now that kind of just touches base on what a Rubber Ducky is. Rob, I don't know if you've seen that before, have you?
No, I haven't seen it in action, and it's scary. It really is. I can just think of all the places where people have got front of house machines, sitting reception areas. It would be so trivial to plug one of them into a computer in most places.
So somebody's asked the question, will AppLocker, blocking PowerShell in AppLocker, stop this from happening? Absolutely. If you block applications from running, there's 3 states to any application. There's denied, permitted, and then ring-fenced. You can't deny everything. If you can block PowerShell from running, that would absolutely stop that attack from happening in PowerShell. They may be able to use run DLL. Good luck in stopping run DLL in AppLocker, because that's going to cause even more pain. But it would stop PowerShell being able to launch that attack from happening. And another question is, do I have to be logged in as a local admin, or will a standard user work? I am not logged in as an admin. At least I don't think I am on this laptop. So no, you do not have to be logged in as an admin. Rob, maybe you want to say something about that.
No, I just it's one of the most common preconceptions that I certainly had, that I used to always just have a sort of idea in my mind that if you can just somehow take away people's admin privileges, then you can stop them doing damage. And the reality is that could not be further from the truth, because as long as you can access your files, your data, your shares, anything you run, whether you're an admin or not, can access the same file shares and data and do damage to them or upload them or interfere with them somehow. So it's doesn't need admin privileges to run something like that.
Yeah, and I want to explain what admin privilege is. The only thing they stop you doing is making changes to the operating system. So from a security point of view, they're not going to stop malware. They're not even going to stop you installing a lot of software. So you can, if you're not an admin, you can go off and install Google Chrome, you can install Dropbox, you can install Firefox. None of those applications need admin privileges to install. So they really don't help you at all, apart from changing access to the system. we have something called tamper protection in ThreatLocker, which stops you turning off ThreatLocker even if you are an admin. But the only reason I don't like people being an admin is because they could disable security software easier than if they were not an admin. The reality is you can still encrypt files on network shares, you can still copy files on network shares, and you don't have to elevate to do any of that. Somebody has asked for the PowerShell script. I am literally posting in a link into the chat now to everybody. Just give me 1 second. This is a box drive. There's all sorts of stuff in here. There's marketing resources, there's template emails, and there's other things. But in there's a bunch of rubber ducky scripts, which include those PowerShell scripts in there as well to actually do that upload. If you are running the script, the link in there is to our public drive. So if you do upload something by mistake, please change it to another Google Drive. If you do upload something, we're not stealing it. We delete them now and again. But please don't run this on your client's computer where you dump all their data in there and then call us going, please delete this. It's on the web. So it is important to say, this is a demonstration. Let's show with some demo data. We also have a bunch of source code in there for different apps too. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about what zero trust is, and because this word, I almost hate marketing buzzwords because it is a marketing buzzword, but it does mean something. And I see antiviruses coming out saying we're a zero trust antivirus. So, well, that's not really accurate, or we're a zero trust threat detection, or we're a zero trust threat hunting. Zero trust, it's very, very simple. What it means is don't give access to anything that isn't needed. And it's not specific to the application level. It's not specific to the network level, but it's a general concept of least privilege. So, Rob's a great guy. I've known him 18 years. I haven't given him my email password. He doesn't have access to my email. He doesn't have access to my bank accounts. I completely trust him, but I don't need to give him that access. So I haven't given him that access. And that is a concept of zero trust, have least privilege on everything. And what that means is, from a non-ThreatLocker point of view, when you set up your firewall, say, what ports do I need open on my firewall? So typically a firewall is always in a zero trust configuration for at least inbound traffic, not outbound traffic, but it's saying we trust no inbound traffic unless we've explicitly denied it. And that's been the same for 20, 30 years. An antivirus, on the other hand, is in a default allow position. So it's saying, I trust everything until it proves me wrong. So I will allow every program, I will allow every DLL, I will allow every script file to run, and I will allow any application to do what it needs unless someone proves me wrong, unless something comes along and says, this did something bad. Zero trust at the application level, zero trust at the endpoint level, reverses that paradigm on its head. What it says is, nothing's allowed to run in my environment unless it's explicitly trusted and I have a reason to run it. So if you think about when a piece of malware comes into your organization, or somebody tries to run TeamViewer, it's sorry, I should have had that on silent. Somebody tries to run TeamViewer, or somebody tries to open any piece of software. We're saying, if you're using zero trust, it says, no, you can't run this until we've got permission from whoever's responsible, whoever the gatekeeper is on this. So the other thing that zero trust means is, once you allow an application to run, it's not just about controlling what can run, but it means trusting those applications less, not letting them access things that they don't need to. And a perfect example of this is the recent issue with QuickBooks. If you run Office and you allow it access to your QuickBooks share, then you're saying Office is capable of reading my QuickBooks data and taking it. And if there's no legitimate reason for that, if there's no benefit to that, then why are you allowing it to be done? Because what you're saying is, I trust Office not to be compromised. I trust Angry Birds not to be compromised. I trust SolarWinds Orion not to be compromised. Zoom not to be compromised 15 times. So when you're running in a typical environment where you're not running in zero trust, you're saying this application can run. And this is important because if you run something on your computer, every time you open it, it can see everything that you can see as a user, whether you're an administrator or not. So we're all running Zoom now. Zoom has access to all of your documents. So if Zoom was to be compromised, please don't leave the meeting just yet. If Zoom was to be compromised, then then it can get access to all your data. The same applied with SolarWinds Orion when it was compromised. So the other thing about zero trust is giving the least amount of access when you allow it in. So we're allowing an application to run, but we're not allowing it to do more than it needs to. We dropped one person off, someone ran away, pulled the power.
Afraid of Zoom, probably rightly so.
Somebody's asked a question. I'm just reading it quickly. Wouldn't you agree? What are your thoughts on requiring password changes? The password should never require to be changed. Stolen credentials. So somebody's asked a question. We share documentation platform with our administrative credentials. My view is there should never be a personal credential stored in this platform. Wouldn't you agree? You should never be we share a documentation platform with administrative credentials. There should never be a personal credential stored in this platform. Wouldn't you agree? What are your thoughts on requiring password changes? NIST and NSA, Microsoft decided a year ago that password changes should never be required to be changed. Stolen credentials can be sold and compromised, but not used for years. What are your thoughts? So my personal thoughts on this, and I think I'm reading the question right. We used SolarWinds Passportal. Password managers are good, but I'm going to show you a reason they're not good later on. They are good, but there are certain things that you have to guard with your life. And for me, those things are my email password and my ThreatLocker portal password. They are the most important credentials I have, and they are never saved in a password manager, because you have to assume there's a potential of that password manager being compromised. Now, what you're doing when you use a password manager, and please feel free to give your opinion, is you're trading the same password for everything risk to I trust the password manager not to be compromised, which is a reasonable trade. It's reducing your risk of security overall. But if you can take your most important passwords, your domain admin passwords, your RMM passwords, if you're an MSP, and maybe not save them in a password manager, that's a good rule of thumb, because you can remember those. You should be able to remember 5 passwords. If you can't, then maybe you want to consider your industry. But if you use a password manager for that. So in terms of should personal credentials be stored in this platform, I'm not that familiar with IT Glue, but I don't have any reason, obviously not shared, that my Netflix password can't be stored in my personal instance of Passportal. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Rob.
I think with everything, it's a trade-off. It's a trade. The danger, and again, I have so much experience with clients that they use the same password for everything because they have no other option. They don't, like, it's either write them down or use the same password for everything. As an MSP, I would have always advised people to use password managers wherever possible. Good password managers, obviously, and there are good ones and bad ones, and you get into which ones are recommended. But as with everything, it's a trade-off. So you are, by putting everything in one place, you are increasing the risk, but it just means that you do only have to remember that one password. So personally, I'd recommend it to people, and I have always recommended it to people, because the alternative is they'll just use the same password for the 15 or 20 different sites they use. One of them gets breached, everything is breached. So that would be my tuppence worth.
On that, there's a script in that box drive that allows you to extract all of the passwords from someone saved in Chrome. So if they're saving in Chrome, slap them around the face and say, stop doing that. After you plug the rubber ducky in and tell them that you have all of their passwords. Again, the other thing is dual factor authentication. Use dual factor authentication on anything that, I mean, no one gives a damn about getting into your Netflix account. But on anything that's important to you, use dual factor authentication if there's a risk to your business.
Absolutely.
The other part of this question was, should NIST, the NSA, Microsoft decided last year that passwords should never be required to be changed. I'm not sure. Well, the NSA would definitely say that because they want you to keep the same password so they can so they can keep reading your email. There's that's kind of the thought on that. they don't want you to change your password, but I'm not really sure that we shouldn't require password changes. It's definitely good. And look, I've done enough white hack to know once I get someone's password, if you can move around very easily, and if you can keep coming back, that's a big problem. I mean, if someone's got your password, you're in trouble anyway, but you don't want them to have it 3 years later. So it's we want to keep those breaches down to the minimum and kneecap them. Now, the idea of zero trust, the idea of saying, okay, I want to deny by default, is fantastic. The reality has often been, especially for MSPs, especially for enterprises that don't have unlimited resources, the reality has always been, well, how do I actually tangibly implement that? As an MSP, you've got 100 different clients. You've got every client's running different applications, different hardware sets, different driver sets. And if you're going to implement a true zero trust, if you're going to implement a true default deny scenario, that means everything that's not listed is going to be denied. And to do it properly, by the way, you have to do it at the kernel level. So if you're using something like AppLocker to say no trusted applications, that's better than nothing, but it's not running at the kernel level. And what that means is a user cannot initiate an attack, but if someone finds an exploit like Eternal Blue in 2017, or gets into your RMM or gets into your Active Directory, those attacks can be launched very, very easily. And it's worth noting, they're the attacks that put you out of business. They're not the attacks that cause you to restore from a backup. They're the attacks that say, nice knowing you, you're gone. Every one of your clients has got ransomware. Just go and sell cars or something, because this isn't working for you. So things like AppLocker aren't going to do that. But the reality is, you're saying, well, great, but I've got 40,000 files on my machine. How do I figure out what needs to run in the first place? And this is kind of one, and I'm not going to jump into a full demo here, but I'm just going to show you some things here. So if you can give me 1 second to pull this up. So what we've done at ThreatLocker is we've really gone into this concept of saying, okay, we want to take this approach and we want to make it really, really easy. We want to make it very seamless and very quick for MSPs to deploy. So what we do, first of all, it's taken us a while to get there, but I pretty much think we've got seamless integration with every single RMM now that I know of, and making it very easy to deploy ThreatLocker. So the first thing you want to do to implement zero trust, first thing you need to do is figure out what do you need in your environment to say, okay, I'm going to share my screen very soon. If I share this screen here. So if I go into here, for example, and I'm just going to pull up ThreatLocker, you need to say, what's in my environment? Okay, I've got 1,500 machines across 100 different businesses. They all have different programs. They have different driver sets. So you need to figure out what they are. So when you deploy ThreatLocker to begin with, the first thing we do is we create all your organizations. So it is multi-tenant. They get created directly from the RMM. So you don't have to go in here and click new for 100 different organizations. The RMM will create them automatically as it pushes out the agent. An agent gets pushed out to the machine, and it does what we call a baseline. So it learns everything that is on that computer. And then it also starts to learn everything that's running on that computer. So when somebody opens a program, when a DLL, a script file, an updater runs, we learn that data and we say, okay, we found Teams is run. We found it's signed by Microsoft. We found this is the size of the file, and we catalog from that. So after about a week of learning, and of course, if you're onboarding 2,000 people, you're going to leave that learning period longer so we can get a smoother transition. Or if you're onboarding 5 people, you might do less. But after about a week of learning, we will literally come in here and we will show you all of the applications that you have. So you can go in here and you can see, look at everything I've got. It creates policy sets for every application, whether that application is Google Chrome or Putty or Notepad++. We're going to create a policy set. And when we do that, we try and match them with what we call built-in definitions. So when we do, the reason we have these built-in definitions is really 2 reasons. One is to give you confidence that it is what it says it is. So you can see, I've got a policy for Notepad++. I know it's Notepad++ because someone in ThreatLocker has gone off, they've downloaded Notepad++, they've installed it, and they've matched the hashes with my file. And we've got about 250 to 300 of these built-in applications at this stage. The other reason we do this built-in applications is so when the applications update, we track the updates. So if there's a Windows update or an Office update or a Chrome update or a 7-zip update or an Automate update, we're going to track those updates so the update doesn't get blocked for you in future versions. But essentially, we're going to catalog all this for you. We're going to catalog your custom software, your Sage or your payroll software or anything customized you're running, your healthcare apps, and build those policies out. Once we've gone through that week of learning, you can review these policies. You can get very granular. So we start talking about, okay, I want to, and we're going to create suggestions for you. I want to run Edge Chromium, but I don't want Edge Chromium to be able to call on PowerShell. I don't want it to be able to call on Redshift or run DLL. So we're going to build these suggested policies out for you during this period. After about a week, you can go in here, you can review it. So if you say, oh, I don't want TeamViewer, you can deny it, or essentially just delete the policy to say, I'm not going to delete it because I'm not sure if it's the same demo account that I'm using for TeamViewer in a moment. And what this does is now you get into the situation where you can simply secure your computer and nothing new can come in your environment. You've essentially automated the onboarding process for Zero Trust. You can go back through and remove anything you don't want afterwards. You're now truly locked down. So if you do have somebody who tries to run something, if a piece of malware comes in from a Word macro, or somebody gets into your RMM and pushes out a script, or somebody downloads a piece of software that's not on that list, you're now in a Zero Trust environment. So it will not be able to run. Either I didn't wait long enough or I had two policies. Just do that. I'm going to clear my... Give me a second to wait up. I'm going to actually go into here and see if I've got anything else with Putty. Apparently I do. So I'll give that a moment. Anything that tries to run though is essentially going to get blocked, and then you get a message, or the user gets a message saying, okay, you're trying to run new software for cybersecurity reasons. We've stopped this from running. You can very easily request access to this from your IT administrator, and your IT administrator can allow it to run. Get my computer to wake up here. There you go. So you can see here, it blocks the application. The user can request access. My RDP session seems to be incredibly slow while I'm waiting for RDP to come back to life.
There's a couple of questions there, Danny. One was asking, how quickly can we expect your policies to be updated for new updates? I presume that's relating to software, third-party software, the 300-ish that we...
Yes. So, and it depends on the application. The worst case scenario is 24 hours. So there's different ways we do this. So take something like Putty. Like Putty doesn't update very often anyway, but what would happen here is somebody would literally in our app team every day, they go onto Putty's website, they download the new version, they install it, they catalog the files, they check there's nothing funky going on with it, like their site's being compromised, and then they add it to the definition. Something like a Windows update, those guys are, well, technically we have agreements to get things early. That doesn't always work out, but let's just say Patch Tuesday, for example, Microsoft dumped 350 updates, about 20,000 files on their servers every single Patch Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Those guys are on that. They're typically doing the major updates within the first 20 minutes, and then the rest of the stuff goes on through another 2 or 3 hours of them deploying those. So some vendors we have pre-release agreements with, so they'll actually push it to us first. They'll notify us first. Other vendors we do it the moment it's released. We get automatic notifications. So it depends on the application. But the worst case scenario is 24 hours. Things that tend to self-update on, we're really on top of those because we monitor them very, very closely. Things like Putty, it's once a day that they're looking at.
James was asking, did I see a rapid check-in on the agent menu? Is that beta or specific version specific?
No, that is any version over 6 or 6.1. It's on the current version anyway. Rapid check-in essentially says our default check-in is 60 seconds, but rapid check-in changes it to every 5 seconds for the next 5 minutes. So if you want to just get policies a little bit quicker, you can do that. And you can see here, it's very easy to permit something. We'll show, okay, this is a known app. You want to use that, you can permit that, you can ring fence it. and you can permit it for a single computer group or a single computer or the entire MSP. So we have these global policies which apply to the entire MSP as well. So if you do have like automated scripts or something you want to run, you can do that. So now it's very, very efficient in that when you do permit something, so I've gone into here, I've requested it, I've permitted it, and now I should be able to run it again. So it's very, very quick at running those applications as well. We saw before with the rubber ducky as well, when I plugged that in, all of those things would have been ring fenced. So when we are permitting applications, we can say, okay, what does putty really need access to? And the question isn't, do I trust putty or don't I trust putty? You can say, what does it need access to in my environment? You have to assume that one day someone screws up in putty and puts a vulnerability in their code. It's unlikely because it's a pretty small app, but you have to assume that they do. So when you permit these applications, you can say during the permitting, do they need access to other applications? Well, putty doesn't need access to other applications. Does it need access to any of my files? No, it doesn't. Does it need to go to my registry to make changes? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I can limit certain registry keys. And doesn't need to go out to the internet. So we allow putty on some of our management servers because we run Dell Enterprise switches. We need to configure those switches with it. We've allowed it only to access those switches. So one of the engineers can't go onto it and connect to something else or of course, no one should be in your network, but if somebody did get in there, they wouldn't be able to use it to connect to something else. If we look at the SolarWinds attack, the SolarWinds Orion attack, the way that worked was essentially SolarWinds, someone got into SolarWinds code. So this is a backdoor for all intents and purposes, although not intentionally created by the vendor. After 2 weeks of installing, the backdoor reached out to an attacker's website to get instruction on what to do next. If SolarWinds was only allowed to go to solarwinds.com, and in many of our clients that was the case, that attack was foiled. Couldn't happen, couldn't execute because it was limited to where it could go to. The thing about this is it kind of, when you onboard, when you go into a zero trust environment, that you are changing the way you do business. You are changing your IT business from reacting to problems to proactively monitoring and controlling what runs. But it doesn't mean more work for you. It should, if you do this right, mean less work over time. Because what happens is you deploy an agent, it learns, you lock it down. As new laptops go out, you've controlled what Chrome extensions are running on them, what software is running on them. People can't click on TeamViewer links and leave backdoors into your network. You can't have Dropbox being downloaded on a personal account and installing loads of filling up hard drive spaces. So your IT management costs should go down, because now what happens is when somebody requests something, you are saying, is this something you need for your job? Now, of course, if the CEO of your biggest client says, I want to run Angry Birds, you're probably going to let him run Angry Birds, but you're going to be able to ring fence it and limit it, which takes away your overall IT support issues, because computers go out and 3 years later, they come back and they're exactly the same as they went out. It's like, I mean, you don't even need to rebuild them. You don't need to change them. Everything's exactly as it was because they couldn't change anything.
I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I mentioned a situation I had about a month and a half ago with obviously when I was still with the MSP. They had a terminal server that, granted, was probably overloaded because everybody had to go home and work from home. So there was like 20 people logged into a server that was designed for 8, for argument's sake. But when we actually dug into it, somebody had decided to install Adobe Creative Cloud on said terminal server, and obviously with 50 million processes per user, it was having a serious impact on the on the server's performance. But just the ability to be able to lock that down and say, no, you ain't installing that, or at least giving you the ability to allow them if needs be, would make such a big difference.
The other thing you can do with this, and this comes back down to someone's been messing with my environment here. This comes back down to the zero trust concept as well. We talked about data and shares, and ransomware attackers are obviously looking at your data. So you can also secure your shares. So you lock down your shares, not just per application. QuickBooks has this fundamental flaw in it, which is really annoying. When you repair the database, if you don't run a database repair, it resets the permissions on the share to everyone, which is just stupid. So you can go in here and you can create policies on your shares. So you can say, I'm going to allow this share, but I'm only going to allow it for computers that are running ThreatLocker. So I could say, if you're not running ThreatLocker, you can't connect to this. And I'm only going to allow it for certain users. And I'm only going to allow it for certain programs. So if a user tries to browse to it to copy it, if an attacker gets onto your system, which of course they shouldn't do, but always assume someone's going to get in some way or another, they can't even browse to it. So they can only use it from QuickBooks. If a macro runs in a Word document, even if you accidentally permit something on the whitelist without ring fencing it in a fit of too much alcohol on a Friday night because somebody requested something, you can limit what programs can access your shares. Your backup shares should only be accessed by Veeam. Your public shares, your Office shares only need to be accessed by Office. Limit that, and that means when because I always like to say when something else gets compromised in your environment, you're essentially really hardening that environment and saying, great, you're in, but we've cut off your legs and your arms. Good luck. So you keep rolling around and see what you can do with that. So you're really assuming they get in, and then you block it from there. I did want to move on to the other thing, because I did promise I was going to show how I got into that MSP. And the idea of this demonstration isn't to show, wow, we're really cool, we can get this stuff. It really is about showing you how you can miss things, you can not think about things as an MSP. And what I want to do is I want to get Rob to connect to my machine here as if he was an MSP. So I'm going to ask Rob to connect to my machine, and we're going to use TeamViewer, but whether we use TeamViewer or whether we use Automate or whether we Screen Connect or whether we use Kaseya, it really doesn't matter, and I'll explain why at the end. So if I just jump into here, and what I'm going to do, Rob, please don't connect during my demo. Anyone, if who wants to try and hack my computer, I will
no problem. And just the more observant among you might see that I am running ThreatLocker, but much like Danny, it's not actually it's not active at the moment. So okay, so this is a position that I often found myself in. So I'm connecting into Danny's machine, and I'm going to do a bit of work on it. Yeah, so just use.
Before you do that, I'm going to do something that I didn't show this person. I had this running in the background, but I want to show you this because I wrote this piece of code just to break into this guy's machine. So I'm going to very quickly start this. And I had it running in the background when my computer is on. Yeah. Okay. So now, Rob, so in this case, what I did is I had a machine up. I said to, I'm going to minimize everything so it's a little bit cleaner here. I said to the MSP, essentially this guy was an MSP. Okay, I'm your client. My machine's running slow. Come onto my machine and fix it. And what he did is the first thing he did is had a look in Task Manager. He then jumped on to Windows updates. So maybe you want to go into settings and run for Windows updates or something.
Yeah, basically just doing MSP stuff. Do I want to reset your PC, Danny?
No, don't reset my PC. Okay, so he hit check for updates, and by the way, I had it left, so there was like 200 updates intentionally on this connect. So what he did then was he clicked check for updates, install updates, don't restart it now. And so if you now do me a favor,
just doing MSP stuff pretty much. So if we imagine, I suppose, that I actually wanted to run those updates. So you have 200 updates there. I'm going to click the updates, and I literally just minimize your machine, leave it there, come back to it a few minutes later, which would be very typical. You'd be jumping from one computer to another, doing 3 or 4 things at the same time. So
yeah, so maybe you want to do that, just minimize it.
Yeah, so basically I just get your session out of the way. So now I'm back doing my normal MSP stuff. So being a good MSP, I have got a KeyPass database, which I never remember the password for because it's 20 characters long. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to paste that in there. Now, again, I'm just doing my usual stuff. So I'm going to go to my email. Again, as Danny said, you don't save that in your Chrome because that's very easily gotcha. Sorry.
This is all fake data. He doesn't really save his KeyPass.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Maybe log into your RMM, Rob. I think you have it open there on the.
Okay, no, I just wanted to try and get into my email. Obviously, that is a fake password, so you ain't going to get in with it. But RMM, so for argument's sake, and again, I just want to go and copy my credentials. Oh, wrong one. And I paste my password in. So that'd be fairly typical behavior of a MSP. Obviously, I don't have an account there. That's fine.
And when we say typical, this guy literally did these exact things, which is why we're using them as an example.
Oh no, listen, I did the same thing myself for years. So it's absolutely normal and not unusual in any way, shape, or form.
Can you maybe go into Office 365 scripts and just do a PowerShell script and work on some? Because in this case, sure, the guy was working on Office 365 PowerShell scripts on his own computer, so he's in there. So I think what
yes.
Copy.
Okay, so just running commands.
Ooh. That didn't work as well as I expected it to. Sometimes hacking.
Let me try again. Oh shit.
Oh, there you go.
PowerShell. That's not my PowerShell script.
Okay, so essentially what's happened now is Rob's machine's just been infected with poo.exe, which is my custom piece of. Now, I'm guessing someone who hasn't seen this presentation before has figured out what happened here. Does anyone want to post it in the chat what happened who hasn't seen it before? Don't cheat if you've seen it before.
Can we give them one more hint?
Oh yeah, so do one more thing there. So do me a favor, send that Calendly link to the sales team.
Sure.
And I did this, by the way. This is how I told him. This is how he knew he'd been really got, because he didn't actually pay any attention to Boo.
What?
By the way, I didn't use Tinder. I used something far more so which he sent to his team. So no one's put in the chat how we managed to do this yet. No, so I'm guessing everyone's either fallen asleep at this point or a little stumped. So essentially, and the point in this is just to show you there's things you don't think about. Yes, so someone's just kind of got it right, which is the clipboard. When you connect to your client's machine, you share something with your client. And my objective here was to just install that malware. So I managed to when this guy connected, he actually connected to a virtual machine, and I had the virtual machine mapped to my machine, so he couldn't see Visual Studio was running, and I could see everything that was happening. So while he was connected, I was monitoring what he was working on throughout the day. And my objective was to keep him connected to my machine as long as possible. So I could figure out how he worked in the day. During this time, and I'm going to switch to my screen now, he shared something with me. He shared his clipboard, because even though TeamViewer, it wasn't TeamViewer, it was Screen Connect, or I think it was Screen Connect that was running, is minimized, you are still sharing your clipboard with your clients, which means anything you put into your clipboard, they can extract out of your clipboard. That wasn't my goal here. The goal was anything that you put into your clipboard can also be replaced by something in there. So let me share my screen here, and I'm going to show you.
Am I right in saying, Danny, that little program you did was about 50 lines of code?
Don't even think it's that. I'm going to share my screen now so you can see what it is.
Sorry, including spaces.
This is my MSP computer. How do I share screen? Including spaces, probably, yeah. So basically what I did is I'm just watching his clipboard all day. I didn't know what to do, and I got really lucky in that he was working on Office 365, and I could see he was copying and pasting these scripts. So I literally wrote here, if the clipboard contains get, invoke, I probably could have done it a smarter way, or set, replace the clipboard with this. Now I did something at the end of this too, which I didn't do at the end of Tinder, is I put the environment new line. So when he pasted it into PowerShell, he didn't even have to hit carriage return. He just had to paste it, and it immediately ran that malware on his machine. It wasn't real malware, but essentially it could have been TeamViewer, it could have been GoToAssist. Basically, I had him and I could get on his machine. I had his data, I could do whatever I wanted because he ran something that wasn't trusted. Then once I figured out he was doing that, I didn't actually run this first of all. I also wrote everything in his clipboard out to the screen. So if I open my program up here, I can see all of Rob's passwords, usernames being captured on the screen.
Not real passwords, just in case anyone's tempted.
However, your TeamViewer link that you shared is accessible for everyone who wants to try and you'll be pretty quick at shutting that down. And then just to really piss him off, I replaced I replaced his websites with Grindr. I was being a little more professional today with Tinder. So he did manage to send a Grindr link to his Slack channel, which was or Teams channel, which was quite amusing. He was a little bit pissed at me, but we did make a deal. So he lost that bet. Consequently, he's now using ThreatLocker. And the bet was he had to look at ThreatLocker if it worked. So the idea of this is I managed to get malware on the machine. There was something that even a third level tech at an MSP couldn't think about. By the way, if you're trying to take screenshots of this code, you don't need to. It's in that box drive. You can download it. You can run it. You can go and freak people out as much as you want. Please don't actually use it for any cybercrime. But if you want to show demonstrations, mess with one of your techs, whatever you want to do, feel free to do that. It's all in the box drive. The point is I was able to get malware on their machine. And there's always something you don't think about, and us included. So the more barriers you can put in place, the more restrictions you can put in place in your environment to stop people running unauthorized software. If he was running ThreatLocker, that would have come up and said, ThreatLocker's blocked this. Do you want to allow it? Since then, we're now added clipboard mapping into ThreatLocker as well, where you can define which applications can access your clipboard too, so they know, and the admin would have got a warning that Danny's stealing your clipboard. But there are lots of things they can do. Assume someone's going to get onto your machine, stop them moving around when they're in there. And if it's not through ThreatLocker, make sure your firewalls are locked down so servers can't get out to the internet that don't need to. Make sure you have good network policies in place, good permissions on your restrictions. The more barriers you put in place, the more successful you will be at securing your client's network. I think there's some questions there as well coming in. Yeah, so somebody asked, can we confirm the malware was running on the client's machine and the MSP was infected by weaponizing the clipboard? Yes, so the malware in this case was running on the client's machine, and we essentially managed to hijack the clipboard, and it was only because the MSP happened to be running PowerShell commands I managed to get malware, but I put malware essentially, or a malware script, into his clipboard so he could run it. The clipboard controls are going live in ThreatLocker in version 6.3, which should go into beta in the next week. It's an extra ring fencing option when you ring fence saying stop this application accessing the clipboard. And what it actually does is it gives you a warning that someone's trying to access your clipboard. Do you want to share that data with that clipboard? So it should be in 6.3 next week, and it will just be that extra tab. I'm just going to go through these, and I think I missed some questions, so I'm going to scroll up. Somebody's asked if there's any way we can automate an email report to be sent out for daily block files. We can do any kind of custom reporting you want, and we can do it by email. We are about 2 weeks behind. Book a ticket with support and ask them, find out exactly what you want in the report, and they can have it scheduled to you on a daily basis. It might not even be 3 weeks, depends on how complicated it is. They can send you that report out so you can see a list of everything that was blocked in the day, or whatever you want. You can put anything you want in those reports and they can customize them for you. I'm just going to quickly go up the list here to see if I missed anything.
There was a good question by Andrew, which is, how does ThreatLocker prevent Windows Sandbox or other VMs on protected machines?
How does ThreatLocker prevent Windows Sandbox?
Basically, malware running in VMs.
Oh, okay.
So block VMs from running is the answer to the question. You can stop Hyper-V, you can stop.
Yeah, and one of the default policies we have actually is to stop if you don't use. So there's and you're talking specifically about it did. I think that started with VirtualBox, where you'd get a VirtualBox image, you'd launch it. Well, first of all, VirtualBox probably wasn't going to be allowed, so it wasn't allowed to launch. The other thing is they couldn't have launched the VirtualBox in the first place because they wouldn't have been able to call PowerShell to download it from the internet from Office, because Office was ring fenced. PowerShell wouldn't have been able to go out to the internet. But also with Hyper-V, we have a standard policy to stop Hyper-V. Again, even if you don't block Hyper-V, it's not going to be able to launch from an Office document or something like that. I don't know how many people are in the US here. In Florida here, we forgot COVID happened, so it's okay. Rob's locked up at home and not allowed to leave the house at risk of being shot. With that in mind, we actually have an event going on in Florida at the end of March, the 31st of March, 1st of April, Zero Trust World. It is a physical event. It is socially distant, so we're mandating ThreatLocker or masks to be worn. We have these cool ThreatLocker ones. If you don't have one, if your client asks for one anyway, So it is a socially distanced event. We do have some great speakers coming in. We have ex-NSA guy coming in. We have the CISO of JetBlue coming in. We have some hacking classes. We're going to teach you in much more detail how to create rubber ducky scripts, how to use Metasploit to exploit vulnerabilities. We've got some compliance talks on how you build a successful compliance and how you sell. It's a day-and-a-half event here in Florida, 75 degrees or 25 degrees if you're in Europe and you want to work in Celsius. If you want to sign up, I was hoping this should
Liz just posted the link there.
Liz just posted the link there in the chat, so feel free to click on that link, sign up. It's well worth the 2 days if you can, if you're not in a restricted area where you can visit Florida, and it should be a lot of fun as well.
Fantastic.
So and Rob's not allowed to come because he's locked up.
Fortunately not. Soon.
Yeah. So I know we kind of gone through a lot today. I actually put one more link in here as well. Yes, there is a virtual option as well for the event. You can book virtually. You're not going to get all of the benefits of the virtual because some of the Q&A sessions are going to be in person, but the main event will be streamed virtually as well. On that, so somebody asked for the virtual option for people outside the US. It is US time, so if you're in Australia, it kind of sucks because it means you have to stay up all night. If you're in Ireland, you get to be locked up from midday to
the evening.
Yeah, to late in the evening, I guess. But there is some virtual stuff going on there as well. Like I said, there was a lot to go there. Really glad to have Rob. I'm really glad to have more MSP experience in the house. Rob, thank you for hosting this with me as well.
Thank you.
If you're not already using ThreatLocker, if you want to find out more, if you want to do a full demo rather than me just showing you parts on that, you can go to threatlocker.com. You can book a demo. I don't know if Liz is going to post a direct link in there. There's a schedule a demo link. It's 45 minutes. Someone will walk you through all the features. They'll help you get it set up on a trial. They'll walk you through how you lock down your clients in more detail. Very, very effective tool and very, very positioned towards MSPs trying to get more secure. So I think
just one last question. A couple of people have asked about automating email reports for blocked files.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If you ask for support, they can schedule a report for you to come out for blocked files. Just click on the Get Help from a Cyber Hero. I mean, if you're already a customer, you know this. They reply within 30 seconds, 24 hours a day. They will get you. They'll create a ticket and they'll make sure that email report is created for you.
I'd just like to second that the support is phenomenal. Since I come on board, I've had to ask them a few times, and it's like that. It's incredible how quickly they come back to you, and they'll always answer the question.
Somebody's asked for a ThreatLocker t-shirt. Just make sure you send an email to whoever you're working with, and they will get you a ThreatLocker Cyber Hero t-shirt and Cyber Hero masks. So.
Somebody's just asked, come in a bit late, is it recorded and able to access? So yeah, I presume we'll be sending a link out to all.
Yes, we'll send it out afterwards.
Excellent.
Okay, well, guys, I appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to working with you soon.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone.